could set Bangladesh on fire. Over in the Caribbean, they're bracing for war. Donald Trump is deploying more firepower and on the verge of designating the Venezuelan president a terrorist. But he's also hinted at talks with Maduro. Meanwhile, India has declared a historic first, the first deal to buy gas from the United States. We'll tell you why this is significant. In the East, it's China versus Japan over Taiwan. The row is escalating with patrols, warnings and falling stocks. A tragedy in Saudi Arabia where a bus crashed has killed several Indians. Is Tim Cook leaving Apple? Who will take over and what is his legacy? Also a report on India's new Rudra brigade. What is it and why does it matter? How crypto has become a den of illicit money to the tune of $28 billion. And what is brain fog? How do you feel it? And what can you do about it? All this and more lined up. The headlines first. South Korea proposes talks with Pyongyang to avoid border clashes. Seoul wants to ease military tensions with a nuclear-armed North. If Pyongyang accepts the proposal, it will be the first military talks between the two sides since 2018. Technically, Seoul and Pyongyang remain at war. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets his Russian counterpart in Moscow. Earlier today, he landed there for a 3-day visit. This comes ahead of Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to India next month. Tomorrow, Jaishankar will be leading the Indian delegation at a meeting of the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In Denmark, websites of several political parties have been hit by a cyber attack. This comes on the eve of local and regional elections. Pro-Russian hackers have claimed responsibility for the attack. Last week, the same group had targeted several Danish government websites. Germany set to remove restrictions on arms exports to Israel. Berlin has imposed the curbs in August. It was in reaction to Israel escalating its offensive in Gaza. Germany has been one of Israel's staunchest supporters, but in recent months, Berlin has been critical of the Netanyahu government. And Taiwan adds advanced semiconductor equipment to its export control list. Taipei makes nearly all of the world's most cutting-edge chips that power artificial intelligence. The US has already restricted the sale of such chips to China. Washington fears that they could be used to advance Beijing's military capabilities.
We have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
It's a tense Monday in Bangladesh, a day nobody would have seen coming. Not last year, not last decade, not even in the last century. Because today, Sheikh Hasina was sentenced to death. A former Prime Minister, an icon of democracy, the daughter of Bangladesh's founder, and today she is a convict facing death. It's a massive moment in the country's politics, a moment that could quickly devolve into violence and chaos. So tonight, let's take a closer look at Dhaka. The day began with some tension. Everyone knew that Sheikh Hasina's verdict was due today. Her case was being heard at a special tribunal. Her charges included mass murder and use of lethal force, basically crimes against humanity. In the morning, security was beefed up at the tribunal. Several protesters also turned up near Hasina's ancestral house. At one point, even clashes broke out. Some quick context here. This case dates back to July 2024. That's when mass protests broke out in Dhaka, July last year. Sheikh Hasina was Prime Minister back then. She ordered the security forces to restore order. But things did not go to plan. As the protests grew, radicals and Islamists hijacked it. So the security officials responded with force. What followed was a tough crackdown. The United Nations says around 1,400 civilians were killed. Now prosecutors say that this was all planned, that Sheikh Hasina asked the forces to kill the protesters, which brings us to present day. The tribunal found Sheikh Hasina guilty of all these crimes and it sentenced her to death. And when that decision was announced, cheers broke out in the room.
To inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
As expected, Sheikh Hasina has rejected the verdict. Let me quote from her statement. The verdicts announced against me have been made by a rigged tribunal established and presided over by an unelected government with no democratic mandate. They are biased and politically motivated. Sheikh Hasina goes on to make two crucial claims. Number one, the trial was rigged. She wasn't even allowed a lawyer of her choice. Instead, the state appointed a lawyer. So she's calling this trial a rigged one. And number two, this trial is meant to destroy Hasina's political future. That's what she says. It's not about justice, it's about politics. And Hasina backs up this claim with a dare. She is asking the interim regime in Dhaka to take this case to the ICC. That's the International Criminal Court in The Hague. This court, ICC, specializes in crimes against humanity. So Sheikh Hasina says, let's have a trial there. But for some reason, Dhaka has not done that. Instead, they're celebrating this verdict. And frankly, it's not surprising. The new rulers of Bangladesh are keen to stamp out the liberation legacy. They don't believe in a secular, progressive country. They're pushing for an Islamist Bangladesh. And today's verdict is a key moment in that transition. The question is, what happens next? Well, there are two things to watch out for. One, what will Hasina's supporters do? She still has thousands of loyalists in Bangladesh. Will they hit the streets or will they pursue legal means? That's the most important question to watch out for. Sheikh Hasina's party is sounding defiant and angry. They're preparing for war, they say.
The verdict declared today, Bangladesh's people refused it. They don't accept it. Never will. To protest this verdict, a countrywide shutdown will be effected tomorrow. Our war will continue and get more severe as long as the illegal Yunus government does not step down.
Hasina's party has called for a nationwide lockdown tomorrow. There will also be protests. They plan to organize protests from November 19 to 21st. And this is an ominous sign in Bangladesh. This is a country where power resides in the streets. Sheikh Hasina herself used street protests to restore democracy. The same streets forced her to flee in 2024. All indications are that her party wants to mobilize now. They want to protest and fight. Let's see if they can back up all this talk. Secondly, there's a question that concerns India, because that's where Sheikh Hasina is. In India. She's been living somewhere in New Delhi since 2024, since she fled Bangladesh, and Dhaka wants her back. Listen to their statement today. I'm quoting again. We call on the Indian government to immediately hand over these two convicted individuals to the Bangladeshi authorities. This is also an obligation for India under the existing extradition treaty between the two countries. So will India agree? New Delhi has reacted to the verdict. It has simply noted Sheikh Hasina's conviction. India has also promised talks to further democracy in Bangladesh. Nothing at all about extradition in that statement. Now, we do have an extradition treaty with Bangladesh, but that treaty has exceptions. It says India can deny the request on multiple grounds. For example, if the charges are in bad faith. So expect New Delhi to push back. Having said that, this will be a tumultuous period for the region. A lot depends on Sheikh Hasina's party. Can they mobilize to fight this verdict? Or have they run out steam after 15 months of crackdown? We'll be tracking this one closely for you. India's energy basket is getting a shake-up, and this time it's not oil, it is gas. I'm talking about the normal cooking gas that Indians use at home. Next year, that gas, that LPG, could come from the United States of America, and this has never happened before. India has never bought LPG from the US. It is set to buy now, and it's being hailed as a historic decision, a decision that may also address Donald Trump's complaints on trade. Let me explain. Your cooking gas is called LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. It is highly flammable. It's a colorless gas. More than 75% of Indian households use this gas for cooking. It is usually compressed and stored in cylinders. India has decided to buy this LPG from American sellers. They've signed a one-year contract. It involves 3 state-owned energy firms: IOC, Indian Oil Corporation, BPCL, Bharat Petroleum Corporation, and HPCL, Hindustan Petroleum Corporation. These companies will buy LNG from the US Gulf Coast, specifically from 3 sellers: Phillips 66, Chevron, and Total Energies. India's petroleum minister has hailed this deal. He says the plan is to import 2.2 million tons every year. That's around 10% of India's imports. The minister says it's all about affordable and diverse supplies, and this decision has 2 aspects. The first is domestic. Cooking gas is a key policy issue for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He wants every Indian household to have LPG. As a result, demand is up. Indians have used 74% more LPG in the last decade, meaning we need stable and diverse supplies. Secondly, there's a global aspect. Last year, the US made up just 0.6% of India's LNG imports. Next year, it will be 10%. Clearly, this is not an organic rise. It shows a conscious decision by India to buy more from the US. The question is why? Well, in the past, traders felt that American gas was too expensive. The journey from the US to India was long. In comparison, West Asia was nearby, so the Gulf Arab nations made up 90% of India's gas imports. Then why are we changing it? Why are we turning to the Americans? Well, like the minister said, diversity is important. Until recently, there was a full-blown war in West Asia. You had missiles flying over Gulf states, so it is important for India to have backups. Plus, this will thrill Donald Trump. He has always complained about India's trade surplus with the US. We buy goods worth $41 billion from the US, but we sell goods worth $87 billion. That's a surplus of almost $46 billion. One LPG contract will not wipe out that imbalance. Nonetheless, it will make Trump happy. And what about the other side? Is Washington also making concessions? Over the weekend, Trump made a big announcement. He lifted tariffs on multiple food items, on things like coffee, banana, and beef. Trump is mainly doing it to lower the food prices at home, but for Indian farmers, it's a relief. They faced 50% tariffs compared to 12 to 15% for others. Indian farmers faced 50% tariffs, other countries faced 12 to 15%. So with this new order, it's back to default. Indian farm goods will face the same tariffs as others. Experts say Indian goods worth $3 billion stand to benefit. So good news for the agro sector, but other industries are still awaiting relief, like gems and jewelry. This sector was a cash cow for India, gems and jewelry. Nearly 37% of India's precious stones went to the US. But then came the tariffs. India's gems and jewelry exports fell 31% in the month of October. And it's across the board. Diamond exports are down by 27%. Lab-grown diamonds are down by almost 35%. Gold jewelry down by 28%. Silver, 16%. This is an industry that employs 5 million people. So when exports fall, jobs are at risk. And that is why India is so keen to settle that tariff issue. It's not just about the macroeconomic picture, it's also about the jobs at stake. And reports say things are close to agreement. India and the US are looking at a 2-part deal. The first part will address the tariff issue, the 25% reciprocal rate and the 25% Russian oil penalty. The second part will address the larger trade arrangement rather. Right now, bilateral trade is $129 billion between India and the US. The target is $500 billion by 2030, and for that, you need a larger free trade agreement. But as they say, one step at a time.
And we always do this with
Imagine all the people living life in peace. These are the lyrics of John Lennon's 1971 song, Imagine. And why are we talking about it today? Because turns out Venezuelan President Maduro loves this song. He doesn't just love it, he performs it. He even sang it to crowds in Caracas.
Imagine us people. Mira, son jodedores, vale.
Now, Maduro may be singing about peace, but his country is on the edge, courtesy the United States of America, more specifically US President Donald Trump. The way he's going, he may be pushing this region into war. The question is Trump planning to invade Venezuela? Will he attack? Because what's unfolding in the Caribbean does not look like a casual naval pit stop. It looks like preparation. What you're seeing is the USS Gerald R. Ford. It's the largest aircraft carrier on the planet. And right now, it is in the Caribbean waters. On board are 60 aircraft, including F-18s. That's a lot of firepower. Plus, there are 1,200 US sailors and Marines in this region. 12,000. The Pentagon calls this Operation Southern Spear. And it's making even close US allies uneasy. The UK and Canada have pressed pause on intelligence cooperation. This is after Washington's controversial boat strikes. Since September, the US has launched 21 strikes on what it calls drug-running boats. They've attacked 21 boats. They've killed more than 80 people, 80. The Americans say that they were part of Venezuelan drug cartels, but there is no public evidence of this. Critics say the American strikes are unlawful. Lawyers say Washington is operating in a legal gray zone, but the Trump administration does not care. It is doubling down. It is set to designate Venezuelan drug cartels as terror groups. We are talking about the cartel de los Soles. And what is that? It's a loose network of Venezuelan military and political figures. The Americans say together they are involved in drug trafficking. And the US had sanctioned it earlier, this network. They'd sanctioned the network, but now they're labeling it as a terrorist organization because calling them terrorists gives the United States a much bigger toolbox. It means more aggressive crackdowns. And here's the important part. Washington claims that President Maduro leads this cartel, the Los Soles. So this designation of them being terrorists is basically like the Americans calling the Venezuelan president a terrorist, a charge that Maduro has obviously denied vehemently. But what's in it for Washington? Why are they doing this? What are they trying to do here? What is their end goal? Trump was asked about this, and he seems to be suggesting talks with the Venezuelan president.
With the designation of that cartel associated with Maduro, does that mean that the U.S. government can target Maduro's assets or infrastructure inside Venezuela?
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be discussing, we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. No one wants a war, but everyone seems to be preparing for it. On one side, there's a US president who likes decisive gestures. A region flooded with American warships, a political climate in Washington that rewards displays of strength. On the other side, there's a Venezuelan leader who is convinced that the US is plotting to remove him. A military mobilizing for an asymmetric conflict and civilians preparing for the possibility of invasion. Add mistrust, miscalculation, and military hardware to this mix, and you have a classic recipe for accidental escalation. Because wars do not always begin with decisions. Sometimes they begin with misunderstandings. So what happens next? Well, there are three paths from here. Number one, diplomacy. Talks begin, tensions cool, both sides claim victory, and this would be ideal. The second path is limited strikes. The US expands its boat strikes, it targets terrorist infrastructure, as it puts it, but it avoids full invasion, essentially a shadow war in the region. That's the second option. The last one is a full-scale military action. There are ground operations and an attempt at regime change. Now, this is the scenario, the third one. This is the scenario that every capital in South America fears, and multiple episodes in their history warn about. So which of these three paths will the United States and Venezuela take? Right now, the answer depends less on strategy and more on temperament. In a region that has seen coups, invasions, sanctions, and secret wars, all it takes is one spark to turn into a wildfire.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
We're now getting you a CNN News 18 exclusive news break. We're learning that the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has now issued a firm denial after a video of him surfaced online claiming that he'd said that more Hindus are joining the ISIS than Muslims. Doval has now told CNN News 18 that he never made such a statement, calling this viral clip a likely deep fake that was aimed at manipulating public opinion. Doval has also told CNN News 18 that the media tools are now being used to distort national security. So putting everything on record, there is NSA Ajit Doval speaking to CNN News 18 and also talking about how this video that is purportedly attributed to what he'd said, claiming that more Hindus are joining ISIS, is probably a deep fake, and he never said such a thing. My colleague Siddhant is with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, NSA Doval making things clear and also putting into perspective this particular video that's been doing the rounds, possible deep fake.
Well, that's right. In fact, NSA Doval has spoken to CNN News 18, and in fact, NSA Doval issues categorical denial flags over this deep fake video getting circulated. In fact, NSA Ajit Doval has clarified that he never made this statement claiming more Hindus are attracted to ISIS than Muslims. He indicated that the circulating clip is likely a deep fake manipulation. Doval, in fact, told CNN News 18 that media tools are now being used to distort national security. The clip surfaced in the middle of increased geopolitical tensions and domestic polarization. He says that this is an attempt to target India's counter-terror narrative. Such a fabricated statement directly attacks India's long-standing counter-terrorism position. This is against ISIS recruitment in India, has been limited, monitored, and inspired by global jihadi propaganda. The deepfake appears designed to inflame domestic political divides by falsely suggesting that the NSA is making communal comparisons. The operation fits the broader pattern of AI-generated misinformation campaigns. So, in fact, in the past, also Manoj Gupta has been reporting on this particular subject, that how Pakistan ISI perhaps has been, making such deepfake videos, perhaps with the aim to do communal divide in India, and perhaps this video of NSA Doval also, which is getting circulated, is an AI-generated video. It is fake. It is a deep-fake video, and now this clarification is coming from nobody else but NSA Ajit Doval himself.
Right. Also, Siddhant, way back in 2014, I believe, more than 10 years back, NSA Doval had in fact underlined on how fewer than 10 Indians are even keen on joining organizations like the ISIS. Do you think those videos, purported clips, also have been distorted to make it appear that NSA Doval, in fact, made this suggestion that Hindus are more keen on joining ISIS?
Well, that's right. In fact, look, in today's scenario where we may not be at war with Pakistan, but definitely ISI keeps attempting to fuel communal divide in the country. They keep they keep attempting to create some kind of a polarized atmosphere in the country, and that is very continuous, and that is very regular, which they keep doing. In fact, our agencies, our cybersecurity networks do counter such videos, do come up with the clarifications and expose these handles circulating such videos. But at times people, because the technology has become so advanced and has got evolved so much that at times it gets really difficult for anybody to perhaps understand whether this video is fake or real, and perhaps that is the case with NSA Doval's video as well. And since it was getting circulated, and in fact now we have this clarification coming from nobody but NSA Doval, and Manoj Gupta has managed to speak to him, and he has the version of the NSA Doval. It's a deepfake video, has been made to fuel communal divide in the country, and perhaps that was the intention. But now the clarification has come, and perhaps definitely the government of India should also be acting against such handles circulating this deepfake video of NSA Doval.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Siddhant. We also have Major General K.K. Sinha, who's joining us on the broadcast. Major General Sinha, this clarification that has come in from the National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, but the claim that he's making that this video was a deepfake one talks about how these clips are in fact doing the rounds online, the kind of apparatus that is at play to build a narrative of something that was never said.
Good morning, Jayant. Yeah, these deepfake videos are basically a media tool now, which is AI generated and try to create,
Our next story takes us to East Asia, where tensions have intensified between China and Japan. The trigger was just one remark about Taiwan. And within days, it has turned into a full-blown diplomatic standoff. Envoys have been summoned, travel warnings have been issued, Coast Guard ships are on the move, and Japan's markets have reacted. So tonight we'll try and break down what happened, why both sides are angry, and why this matters for the entire region. Let us begin with the remark that started it all. As you know, Japan has a new Prime Minister. Her name is Sanae Takaichi. On November 7th, she spoke in the Japanese Parliament. She was asked what Japan would do if China attacked Taiwan. If China attacked Taiwan, what would Japan do? That was the question. Prime Minister Takaichi said that it would be, and I'm quoting, a survival-threatening situation for Japan, that it could trigger a Japanese military response. And her answer set off a firestorm. To understand why, let me give you context. Two main points here. First, Japan is a pacifist country, which means its constitution limits when it can use force. But they passed a law in 2015, and that law makes one exception. Japan can fight, Japan can use force if its own survival is at risk. That's the first point. The second point, no Japanese Prime Minister has said it so openly before, has spoken about Taiwan so openly before. Earlier, leaders mostly avoided the subject. They called it strategic ambiguity, which means do not spell out your position and do not provoke Beijing. But Prime Minister Takaichi has spoken about it openly. So China was quick to respond. Beijing summoned the Japanese ambassador and called Prime Minister Takaichi's remarks provocative. A Chinese consul in Osaka went even further. He posted on social media, and I quote, "The dirty neck that sticks itself in must be cut off." The post was later deleted, but the damage was done. Tokyo summoned China's ambassador. It called the comment extremely inappropriate. Beijing then moved to the next pressure point. They issued a travel warning against Japan. Beijing told Chinese citizens to avoid visiting Japan. It said the atmosphere for people-to-people exchanges had been damaged by the Prime Minister's remarks. So Chinese airlines began offering full refunds for flights to Japan. And the effect was immediate. Japan's stock market reacted. Its tourism and retail stocks fell sharply because Chinese tourists are Japan's biggest spenders. They bring in billions of dollars every year. Experts say Japan could lose more than $14 billion if this travel freeze continues. And how did Tokyo respond to this warning? Well, it said Beijing's moves will hurt their relationship. Listen in.
I believe that this announcement by China about warning against traveling to Japan, which seems to curtail the exchange of people between the two countries, including study abroad and tourism, is incompatible with the broad direction of promoting a strategic, mutually beneficial relationship confirmed by the leaders and building a constructive and stable relationship.
But China's response fits a pattern. They react sharply every time a country comments on Taiwan. Just a few months ago, it happened with the Philippines. Their president gave an interview to First Post. He spoke about Taiwan, and on cue, China issued a warning to the Philippines. It told Manila to quote-unquote stay within its limits. And it's doing the same with Japan now, because Taiwan is an extremely sensitive subject for the Chinese leadership. Beijing considers Taiwan a part of its territory. Its goal is reunification. And it has not ruled out using force to take the island. So Japan's comment touched that core sensitivity, and China is hardening its posture. Chinese Coast Guard ships are on the move. They're sailing through waters around the Senkaku Islands. Now, this is disputed territory, the Senkaku Islands. Japan controls these islands, but China stakes claim to them. Beijing also flew a drone near Yonaguni. That is Japan's westernmost island, and it sits very close to Taiwan. The Chinese flew a drone close to this island, and Japan scrambled fighter jets in response. Meanwhile, Taiwan has been tracking this escalating row. It has condemned China. Taiwan says Beijing's actions have severely impacted regional peace. Taiwan is also bracing for impact. It has started distributing handbooks to its citizens. These are civil defense handbooks. They tell you what to do, where to go if a crisis with China breaks out. At this rate, it looks like a question of when, not if. And it's something that the world must take note of. Taiwan sits at the center of strategic decisions, economic risks, and regional calculations. Japan has changed its tone. China has defended its red lines, and the region is watching every move, hoping that Tokyo and Beijing can manage tensions before they blow up. Our next story is from Saudi Arabia, where a bus carrying Indian nationals has crashed. It happened on the road between Mecca and Medina. Mecca is Islam's holiest city. Medina is the city where the Prophet Muhammad is buried. The route between these two cities is one of the busiest pilgrimage corridors in the world. The passengers on this bus were traveling for Umrah. Umrah is a short pilgrimage to Mecca. It can be performed at any time of the year. This group had come from the South Indian city of Hyderabad. They traveled as a group of 54 members. 46 of them boarded the bus. The bus collided with a fuel tanker and caught fire. 45 passengers have died. Only one person has survived. Authorities are still identifying the victims, and control rooms have been set up both in Saudi Arabia and in India. Here's a report.
A major tragedy has unfolded on the road that links the holiest cities of Saudi Arabia. After a bus traveling between the cities of Mecca and Medina crashed and caught fire. The passengers on board were Indian nationals. Almost all of them have died. Officials say the bus collided with a fuel tanker on the highway. There were 46 people on board. 45 have been confirmed dead. Only one passenger has survived. He's being treated in Medina. Rescue teams say the fire has made identification difficult. Many bodies were charred. Saudi authorities and Indian diplomats are working together to confirm each name. Most of the passengers were from the Indian state of Telangana. They had travelled as part of a group from the Indian city of Hyderabad to Saudi Arabia earlier this month. The group had 54 members. They were performing Umrah. Umrah is a short Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca that can be done at any time of the year. After completing rituals in Mecca, the group prepared to travel to Medina. But not everyone took the same route. Some members stayed back in Mecca. Others went to Medina by car. The 46 who boarded the bus were the final batch still travelling. The Consulate General of India has set up a 24-hour control room in Jeddah. Helplines are active for families seeking information. A separate control room is also operating in Hyderabad. Officials are matching passenger lists and tracking the survivors' condition. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed his condolences. He says he's deeply saddened by the tragedy. He also says Indian missions in Saudi Arabia are providing all possible assistance. State officials in Telangana have also announced support for the affected families. The state government has approved financial assistance. A delegation of officials will also travel to Saudi Arabia to help with procedures and last rites. This accident is not the first of its kind. Saudi Arabia has seen several serious road crashes involving pilgrims in recent years. In 2023, a bus carrying pilgrims to Mecca caught fire after a collision and killed 20 people. In 2019, another crash near Medina killed 35 people. A 2023 United Nations statement reportedly noted that Saudi Arabia had a high rate of road fatalities compared to other high-income countries. These routes are among the busiest during pilgrimage seasons. Millions of people travel through them every year from across the world. For now, families in India are waiting for confirmed identifications. Control rooms are receiving calls, officials are verifying names. And in Hyderabad, families are coming to terms with the scale of the loss.
The year was 1998. Tim Cook had a secure job at Compaq. He was getting paid well, he had a good position, it was almost like the dream job. At that time, Tim Cook got many offers from Apple, but he refused all of them. And remember, this was not the Apple of today. This was Apple before the iPod, the iPhone, iTunes, all of it. The company was struggling, in fact. So Tim Cook made the obvious choice and he refused to join Apple until something changed his mind, or someone. He had a 5-minute conversation with Steve Jobs.
When I came out to talk to Steve about working at Apple, it felt so alive and so different. He was passionate about the product, about Apple, and its purpose. From that point, I never thought that Apple would be going out of business.
The rest, as they say, is history. Tim Cook's operational expertise helped Apple save billions of dollars. The company became profitable again. In 2011, Tim Cook became the CEO of Apple. Today, he served at the helm longer than Steve Jobs. But now there is talk of him stepping down. Reports suggest that he could step down as CEO as early as next year. And who will replace him? Well, Apple is planning for the succession. Tim Cook says there are very detailed plans. Chances are it will be an internal candidate. It is not clear who it will be, but reports say the top choice is this guy, John Ternus. He is Apple's Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering. Ternus joined the company in 2001. He was elevated to this role in 2013. He has overseen all the major hardware launches from iPads to AirPods, and he's being seen as a top contender. Now, we do not wish to speculate. Tonight, we want to focus on the man leading Apple today. We want to look at the Tim Cook era. When he took charge, Apple was worth $350 billion. Today, it's worth $4 trillion. That's a massive leap. Look at the revenue, the jump in their revenue from $108 billion to nearly $400 billion. Profits have more than tripled. Apple became the first publicly traded company ever to hit $3 trillion. and then it hit $4 trillion. On Tim Cook's watch, services became a second engine for them. I'm talking about Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Pay. All of this became a $70 billion engine. Critics say Cook lacked the imagination to create the next iPhone. Well, that may be, but he did launch the Apple Watch, AirPods, and the Vision Pro headset. So there have been some key launches in his era. Also, we're not trying to romanticize this phase because Tim Cook's Apple also had some expensive hobbies. The electric car project that burned billions of dollars, the secret robotics initiative that went nowhere, the slow response to generative AI that allowed competitors to surge ahead. For a company that prides itself on being the future, Apple is glaringly old school on AI. So what is Tim Cook's legacy? If Steve Jobs built Apple's soul, Tim Cook built its body. His legacy is threefold. First, he made Apple dependable, predictable in the markets, and unshakable in crises. That's the opposite of Steve Jobs, and that's exactly what Apple needed at that point. Second, Tim Cook expanded Apple from a product company into an ecosystem empire. He minted billions through services and prioritizing privacy. And third, he missed the AI train. Apple focused on too many side projects at one point, at the same time. But it has not managed to crack artificial intelligence. And that may be the next CEO's biggest challenge, reinventing Apple for an AI-first world. That's the challenge. Currently, the company faces many headwinds. A stiff competition in the world of AI, slower iPhone growth, rising regulatory heat, shifting manufacturing geopolitics, and of course, the pressure to invent the next big thing, the next thing after the iPhone and the MacBook. So the next CEO of Apple may not have to be a visionary artist like Steve Jobs or a logistics monk like Tim Cook, because Apple now needs a hybrid, someone who can dream and execute at trillion-dollar scale. Our next story focuses on the Indian Army. They're undergoing a quiet but important shift. It's a shift built around a new formation called Rudra. Now, Rudra is not a weapon. It's a fully integrated brigade. It brings tanks, artillery, drones, and infantry into one team. Together, they make the Rudra. It was recently tested in a large exercise on the Western Front, and that test revealed a much bigger story. Rudra is part of a broader update to India's war planning, an update that in fact began 24 years ago. It started after the 2001 Parliament attack. That attack triggered a massive mobilization in India. It was called Operation Parakram. And it showed how slow we were. It showed how the lack of speed could limit India's options. So the army started working on a new doctrine. It was called Cold Start. It focused on speed and agility. But the battlefield has evolved since then, and India is updating its doctrine again. That's where Rudra comes in. Our next report explains.
India is quietly rewriting its war plans. And the new name on the table is Rudra. Rudra is not a weapon system. It is a new kind of brigade, a fully integrated all-arms formation. It is designed to train together, move together, and fight together. The Indian Army tested this brigade during Exercise Trishul on the Western Front earlier this month. There, a Rudra brigade, codenamed Black Mace, was put through full operational validation. The brigade brought tanks, mechanized infantry, and artillery into one plan. It included air defense, engineers, signals, and logistics units. And drone detachments were also reportedly part of the group. The Indian Air Force also joined the mission. Fighter ground attack sorties were carried out. Attack helicopters flew in support. Special heliborne operations were also included. It was a picture of joint and high-tempo warfare. And it points to something larger. Rudra is part of a shift the army has been working towards for years. A shift that began after the 2001 Parliament attack India launched Operation Parakram, and it took nearly a month to mobilize its strike formations. By the time troops reached the border, Pakistan had prepared its defenses. That experience shaped India's next doctrine. It was called Cold Start. Cold Start aimed to mobilize faster, move in smaller, agile groups, and launch limited, precise offensives before international push could build. It was designed to work under a nuclear overhang, without crossing the red lines. For years, Cold Start guided India's conventional planning. But in recent years, warfare has changed. New domains have emerged, including drone warfare, cyber attacks, and precision strikes. And experts say the army is now sharpening this approach. The new idea is reportedly called Cold Strike. Cold Strike focuses on speed, deeper thrusts, and real-time intelligence. It focuses on seamless coordination across land and air. Rudra fits directly into this shift because Rudra is built for tempo, integration, and to operate under complex, fast-moving conditions. 2 such brigades are reportedly already deployed on the northern borders. One in eastern Ladakh, another in Sikkim. Reports say more are being raised by converting existing formations. Each Rudra brigade is customized for its terrain. Units can be attached or detached based on the mission. The Army and Air Force are also inducting indigenous counter-drone systems. Some can target enemy drones with lasers at around 2 kilometers. All of this signals a broader transition, a move towards joint and technology-driven operations with faster decision cycles and tighter integration between services. Experts also point to the next steps. Rudra must be tested across terrains such as high mountains, jungles, cities, and desert environments. It must be backed by strong logistics, clear communication networks, and refined joint command structures. If Cold Strike is adopted, Rudra could form the backbone of India's future doctrine. It will be a doctrine built on speed, precision, and coordination. In a region where timing and technology now shape the battlefield.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Imagine us people.
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be discussing, we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
The Trump administration is rapidly escalating its pressure campaign against Venezuela. This week, off the Caribbean Sea, we saw the arrival of America's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford. This carrier strike group is now about to take up a position within striking distance of Venezuela. But President Trump and his aides have not exactly been very clear of what is it that they hope to achieve in Venezuela. Is it a counter-narcotics operation? Is it regime change? Or is it something else? Trump held back-to-back days of meetings this week at the White House, reviewing military options, including the use of special operations forces and direct military action inside Venezuela. If that were to happen, that would be very unusual, particularly in the last 30 to 40 years. It is still not clear whether President Trump has made a decision yet about what kind of action he wants to authorize.
On Venezuela, sir, you've had a lot of meetings on Venezuela. I know you can't tell us what your next steps will be, but can you say, have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do for as far as action? For
I sort of have made up my mind, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up.
what you say to some of your supporters might not be excited about another foreign campaign?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I can't tell you what it is, but we made a lot of progress with Venezuela in terms of stopping drugs from pouring in.
It is possible that Trump is relying on the arrival of so much firepower just to intimidate the government of Nicolas Maduro. The United States and many of its allies say that Maduro is not Venezuela's legitimate leader. Maduro, in turn, has put his forces, his army, on high alert, and that has left both countries with their weapons loaded and ready for war. There were signs that the administration was moving into a new and more aggressive posture. Just shortly after these meetings that happened in the White House this week, the War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, posted on social media that the mission in the Caribbean had now got a new name, Southern Spear. He described the goal of Southern Spear as singular, and that was squarely to remove narco-terrorists from America's hemisphere. With the arrival of the USS Gerald Ford and 3 other accompanying naval destroyers, there are currently 15,000 American troops in the region. That is more than at any time in the last few decades. The last time America had so many troops in the Caribbean and in Latin America was in 1989, when America ousted the regime of longtime Panama dictator Manuel Noriega. Donald Trump has been the most consistent when it comes to what Operation Southern Spear actually means. He has been consistently saying that this is all about drugs. But if you were to take the president at face value, it will not explain why the aircraft carrier, the biggest in the US Navy, had to be rushed from the Eastern Mediterranean Sea to the Caribbean Sea. And you don't need such a huge naval warship to be positioned to attack small speedboats. Now, this same anti-drug, anti-narcotic operation, until September or so, was dealt by the US Coast Guard and not by the US Navy. Nor would it explain why Colombia or Mexico are not the target countries, but instead Venezuela. In fact, Colombia and Mexico, these 2 countries are the main conduit for drugs, and particularly for fentanyl that comes into the United States, not Venezuela.
Venezuela's government saying that it's doing a massive military mobilization in response to what they call a threat from the United States.
Loan Health Insurance Company, with you forever.
Are you a young man looking to date? If you are, billionaire Bill Ackman has some tips for you. He wants you to walk up to someone and say, "May I meet you?" Not, "Can I talk to you?" Not, "Hi, what's your name?" He wants you to say, "May I meet you?" Apparently, it works for Bill Ackman. He says he has never had a negative reply to this question. Just one problem though, this is 2025. This is the age of Gen Z and Gen Alpha. "May I meet you?" is not a good line for them. It's a one-way ticket to Troll Junction. That's exactly what happened to Bill Ackman. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. A dramatic video captures a Japanese volcano shooting ash into the sky. Paris switches on Christmas lights along the Champs-Élysées, and a seal tries to escape killer whales by jumping onto a boat. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1869, the Suez Canal opened in Egypt after 10 years of construction. It connected the Mediterranean and the Red Seas, becoming the shortest sea route between Europe and Asia. Today, the Suez Canal is one of the world's most heavily used shipping routes. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
The Mayan us people.
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be discussing, we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
The Trump administration is rapidly escalating its pressure campaign against Venezuela. This week, off the Caribbean Sea, we saw the arrival of America's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford. This carrier strike group is now about to take up a position within striking distance of Venezuela. But President Trump and his